We are delighted to introduce Elsa Santos, a dedicated educator from a very special school. Elsa shares her journey from facing learning challenges in her youth to becoming an inspiring kindergarten and first grade teacher. Elsa reminds us of the value of listening to and supporting our children, highlighting how each child, like a unique flower, needs specific attention and care to flourish.
Hi, I want to welcome you all back to our Guided Growth podcast. This is episode 5, and today we have another special guest from a very special school. She drove a long way to join us today, and we are so thankful for her time. I'm thankful for Elsa Santos for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us. And Elsa's all warmed up because we just recorded the Spanish episode. Again, I'm just going to keep repeating it every episode. If you didn't know, this project is a bilingual project. We want to reach as many people as possible. And something I've never shared before with any of you is when this project was born, I always said, I wish this type of information, I wish my mom had this type of information. And that is when we decided to make it a bilingual project. So yes, if you have friends that speak Spanish, send them this content. If you find it of value, let them know that they can also get a lot of value out of this. And we're going to get to talk to Elsa today. Elsa, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for driving down. And let's get to the conversation. So Elsa, let's go to the beginning.
Sure.
What brought you to education?
Since I was a little kid in school, I was struggling learning. I wasn't, the smartest child. I wasn't the brilliant student in school. So I had my challenges growing up. And there was always someone special in my life as a teacher, teaching me, guiding me, and giving me words of encouragement and telling me that I could do things that I will give up or try to say, this is something that is not for me. I can't do it. Maybe even dropping off school. But those teachers really believe in me and encouraged me to keep going and taught me and helped me through those challenges.
Wow. So that made an impact in you in wanting to be that person to help a student that was being challenged in school. Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That we're off to a great start. I think if a parent knows that their child is struggling at school and they have that teacher that really cares for them, their child might end up being a teacher like Elsa.
Yeah,
wow.
You never know.
Yeah, that is really powerful. How did, so that's when you were a kiddo. Eventually, what was your path to going into teaching? Were you always like, I want to be a teacher?
No.
No?
I even, when I was in high school, I thought accounting was something that I might like. I have no idea what I was getting into. But then when I graduated and then I went into doing, working in a bank and doing accounting, I hated it. And I thought, no, this is not for me. And I started going to school. I went back to school and I totally changed my career. And I said, no, I don't want accounting. So, and I started considering teaching. And then right then they started a pilot program in Edmonds Community College from Central University. And I was going to Edmonds taking just classes. I didn't know what I was going to study. And I don't know. A counselor talked to me and told me about this program that they were starting right there. And I said, well, I want to get into it. And I did it. And I'm glad I did it because I love teaching.
That's really
this is
cool.
my passion, and I enjoy doing it.
How long have you been teaching?
It's been 5 years.
5 years. Wow. So it's really interesting because I think you're the second person I've interviewed that said, I was doing this thing for so many years and then everything changed because that was not it for me. And me thinking, sometimes a lot of us think like, oh, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then you hit that point where you're like, I don't think that's it. And then you hit that turning point, and have once you went through college, what was next for you?
Well, I graduated and then I got married.
Oh.
And after that, I had my first child, and then my second child. I decided to stay home because I said, I want to be with my kids. So 10 years later, almost, my kids were ready to go to school, and here I was, my kids are going to school. Here I am. What do I do now? So I went applying for a job and something related with teaching. I was nervous, afraid maybe, fearing that they were not going to hire me if I went just to apply for a teacher. And I felt like, it's been so long since I graduated from school. So I went into working as a paraeducator in the special education.
Oh, wow.
So after a few years, I loved it. I enjoyed doing that. And I felt like, even I was telling my husband, maybe I'm going to retire doing this. I really enjoy what I'm doing. And then out of the sudden, I was being part of the parent board meetings at the school that there was an opening, and my boys were going to the same school. So I decided to apply, and I got the job.
And is that where you're at now?
Yes.
Okay, that's
That was
really
my
cool. And what are you teaching now?
I teach kindergarten and first grade.
Kindergarten and first grade. On the last episode, we talked with Anna, who's one of your co-workers.
Yes.
And we talked on the model of your school, which is really interesting. I had always wondered, how do you do it? How do teachers that teach, it's called multi-grade.
Grade class.
Multi-grade. Yes, I was wondering, I was like, how do they do it?
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this episode and you don't know what a multi-grade teacher is, go back to our previous episode and listen to that, because Anna's story is really cool, and she really breaks it down, like the benefits of it, because I always saw it as a challenge.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like they're not spending enough time with the kids. I'm sure they're super stressed. And then after Anna explained it, I was like, that sounds so cool. I feel like every school should be like that.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah. So kinder and first grade, what are some of your like wins and some of your challenges there?
There's always, challenges I think in any work or setting. So for me, getting to know my students very well is my first thought, as soon as they get into my classroom. I see my classroom as a, garden with different flowers, and every flower needs a different type of like how to take care of, right? Yeah. So you need to know your flowers, the kind of flowers you have. And so I really like to get to know my students very well at first, and then try to get, without invading their privacy, but getting to know them better as they let me, and enjoy them and see what their needs are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and work with them with that. And at the level that they're at in the beginning, some of my students don't know not even the ABCs, and others already know how to read in kindergarten. So it's really nice to see that variety, but it can be challenging because it's only me, and it's like I don't know how many of them, and I have to prioritize what is it that I really want them to learn, and what is it that I really want them to get from this classroom at the end of the school year.
Interesting. First of all, I love that you compare your students to flowers. That says a lot about you and the way you see your students, which is really powerful. Like I'm a new parent, and I'm like, I would love for my child's future teachers to see him as a flower that is blooming, into this beautiful human that they're gonna be, because that's how we parents see them. So that says a lot, and I love that you share that and you see your students that way. What would you say are some of the techniques that what is it like? What is it like teaching kindergarten? You know, I'm not even gonna jump into other questions. Let's start there. What is it like teaching little ones? Well, how old are they? Like 6 years old, 5 years old? Okay,
Some
what is
of
that
them
like?
just like right there turning 5,
Oh
the
my
same month
good-
that they're starting
yes,
school.
yeah.
They're very tiny little
Tiny
people,
little-
but they're they're funny,
Mhm.
they're innocent, and they're curious, and they're just there to learn, and they want to experiment and explore everything that they're learning. Each day is different. I can really tell you like what a day is like because you never know. Sometimes it can be like everybody's like right there where I want them to be, like listening and ready to do everything that we have to do on the day. And we finish the lessons, and at the end we even have time to play and have fun.
Yeah.
And other days it's just like, some of the kids are crying because they feel sick or because something not as happy is happening at home, and everything that is happening in their lives is affecting them, and they bring them to the classroom, and I have to be able to be sensitive about that and not just run into conclusions like, why is this kid acting the way it is, or why is this kid giving me such a hard time, or not letting me teach the lesson. And I have to pay attention and be able to listen, what is the feeling, what is the mood of my classroom, and sometimes we accomplish a lot during the day, sometimes we hardly do anything. I have to be honest. And it depends.
So you get to see. One of our previous episodes, we talked with the high school teacher, and she said, we get to see when they're walking in, and you can see there's probably something happening at home.
Yes, definitely.
And you can also see that with kindergartners,
Yes.
with 5-year-olds.
Oh yes.
Really, that is so interesting that they're at that young age, they're already picking up on all these things that are happening in the home, and you see it in the classroom. How like what are some of the things that you see that are cues? I mean, how is a child, expressing themselves when something is happening at home?
They're different. Some of the kids are withdrawn. Just as soon as they get into a classroom, they just like, looking down. They don't look at you. They don't look at anybody. They don't say anything. They just go straight to their desk. They sit there. Some of the kids just put their head down. And then just right there, there's something happening. So I just let them, feel comfortable. I don't go right away. I wait until it's the right moment. And they just go and say, hey, how you doing today? Or is everything okay? And just, and then if they don't want to say anything, I just respect that. And sometimes they do, but for the most part, little kids don't want to share anything. They just express it with their behavior. Sometimes just looking at their faces, you just feel like there is something happening, that it's really bothering that kid. And other kids can be just like being, anxious or,
Antsy, just jumpy.
Bouncing everywhere. And they don't tell you anything, but if it's something that it just happens, occasionally or not very often, they're telling you something just with their behavior, the way they behave in the classroom.
So I know we have a lot of parents listening to this. What would be something you would tell parents, in relation to this, as they're dropping off their child at school and maybe something's happening at home? What would be a piece of advice that you would give to parents if something is happening at home and they're dropping off their 5-year-old at school? What could be something that they can do to help their child be more successful that day at school, or not lock themselves down like that?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest to be a listener more than a talker. We as parents, we want their kids to listen to us, but sometimes we don't provide that time to listen what they have to say, or maybe not what to say, but how they are behaving, or what things are they doing at home. We're all busy. This is a time that, parents we have a lot of responsibilities. Sometimes we choose to have many things that we are focusing on, and set priorities. What is it that I really want for my child, for my kids? But then that listening part, I will definitely suggest parents to pay more attention to how they are behaving and how they are reacting to certain things, certain situations that are happening at home. Sometimes parents do things without thinking or without being aware that as parents, or as a couple, even in the home, we do or say things that we think a 5-year-old is not listening, is not hearing, or is not really understanding what is happening. But they do pick up a lot of things that we think they don't really understand what is happening, but they do. And it's important that we are more aware of that, not do or say things that we are hurting each other and are hurting the little ones who are in the same room, probably thinking that they're playing, they're doing something else, they're not listening. They are listening.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Sometimes we think the little ones is like, oh, they're little, it's not affecting them. This is adult talk. These are adult problems. Yeah. They're playing. They got the iPad. They're in their own little world. It's not going to affect them. But you get to see it firsthand sometimes. And I don't think this is not a psychology podcast or anything like that. But I think it's really interesting to hear that. I've always been curious about that aspect of the little ones. How those things get reflected in the classroom sometimes, because parents, they drop off the kids at school. Hours later, they pick them up and they go home. And I feel like I've said it in every episode, we sometimes don't know what happens in the classroom, or we have very little communication sometimes with the teacher. Or it's just like, oh yeah, the little one's got to do his homework or do his assignment. And that's as much as we know about their education sometimes. And I think that's very important. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I think you're the first kindergarten teacher that we're really talking. Yeah, we've had 3 high school teachers. Okay. Then we had Anna, who's more like 4th grade, and now you kindergarten. So it's really interesting to hear the different spectrums. Yeah, if this is the first episode you're listening to with, go back. And like I said, we have stories from high school teachers too, and then we also had someone that's a substitute teacher. Oh, really? I think our first episode is with the substitute teacher who substituted little ones and high school kids. And we were talking about this. She's like, no, the little ones, they're learning. They're learning so fast, and they're picking up on everything. It's not like, oh, once they're teenagers, they learn. It's like, no, they're learning. Yes. I mean, since they're months old. Yeah. In that way. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Their brain is growing so fast that they're just sucking everything. Yeah, and there's so much information in today's world. Now. There's so much going on that they are picking up everything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I know this is something that intrigues me too, since I'm a technology person and I like technology. Is there technology in a kindergarten classroom?
Yes. Well, I don't know. We consider a technology. You've seen, being exposed to computer and having computer programs that we use for our curriculum, things that we are teaching, having a small group and having direct instructions, and then they get to go into the computer and reinforce what they're learning in different programs, math, reading, phonics. and things like that. Sometimes students need that extra. So yeah, we do have that. Parents are surprised how their kids, they're like, sometimes kids are not exposed to any electronic devices at home.
Yeah.
And when they see their kids, using a Chromebook in the classroom, they feel like, wow, they already know how to do that.
They pick it up so fast.
Oh yes, they do. I at the beginning, my first year, I was underestimating how much they could learn or how long it will take them to like log in. And no, they learn their login information really quick, and then they start doing it. And
so they don't have our problems that we forget our passwords.
Oh no, they don't. Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, the majority just like they know it, and I'm like, oh, do you remember that? Like, yeah, and they would just type it in.
That is super interesting. I've always had that question. I was like, I wonder if they're using technology and kindergarten. I know different schools are different. This is your classroom, this is your experience. Not, different schools, different styles. But that's interesting to hear in regards to that. What would you say is what's your favorite thing to teach? What is your favorite thing to do with these little kiddos?
I don't know if I have a favorite subject. I teach all subjects with my kids. Yeah. I really like to, involve like myself, my everything into everything that we're doing. So I don't think I have a favorite subject. I enjoy teaching, the subjects with my students, and I really love what I do, and I don't think I have any favorite one.
Interesting. How do you, I guess, I just have all the questions, and I'm sure parents listening have all these questions too. How do you evaluate a kindergartner or a first grader? How does that work?
Yeah, it's really sad that we have to, evaluate them and assess them first when they come into the classroom. So we have different types of assessment. We have like the ones that you go through, like a checklist and things like that. Or we also have assessments that our conference provides for us, in the internet. We do it online. That are required, and then they are assessed for the things that they should know, like kindergarten should know certain amount of sight words, or, at the end of the school year, or in math, student, the kindergarten should know to count 1 through 100 and things like that. And it's really different than how it used to be, before. Students were not expected to have all this like requirements, I guess. And they did a lot of gaming, a lot of playing, a lot of things that were more toward, what they're doing as kids, playing. That's what they should do. But now there's not much playing. Now we have to incorporate games and playing and pretending while we are teaching them something that they are required to know by the end of the school year. So there is a lot.
That's a challenge. You know what you have to teach in regards to curriculum,
right? But
then incorporating a game into it.
Right.
Because you're not going to sit 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and you're like, okay, this is the curriculum for today. Playing with them and turning it into a game. That's interesting. As we're running out of time. Like, time flies every time I'm like sitting here talking to teachers. And but as we're wrapping up, what would you say is I'm sure you guys have activities throughout the year, maybe that you guys repeat. What is your favorite activity?
What's my favorite activity?
Well,
teaching Bible. It's my favorite because it's interesting how like the majority of my students in my class are not, they don't practice any religion. Most of them don't go to church or anything like that. And they enjoy Bible so much. And when I start talking about Jesus, about God, even they don't know that is. Well, at first, when I start talking to them, I tell them I'm going to tell them about a friend. And then I start telling them all this about my friend, and then my friend is Jesus. And then most of them never heard of that word,
Yeah.
And then they will tell me, not at the moment, but
Yeah.
maybe later on. So,
Okay.
Mrs. Santos, who is Jesus? And I love that question because that is an opportunity for me to present them. Who is Jesus?
Who is Jesus?
This
That's awesome.
marvelous person who loves them and wants to save them. And I love sharing Jesus with my students.
I love that. And just for context for our listeners, Elsa is a teacher at a Christian academy school.
Call it, I don't know.
School? At a Christian school. Yeah. So that's why she gets to teach Bible at her class, and it's a great school that I've recently found out about, and I love, like I said, talking to Anna, talking to you, and as we're wrapping up, what is one last tip? Something if you could share with parents. We're sharing with parents, or a tip that you always share with your parents from your classrooms, or something you wish you could tell every parent in the world. What is that tip you want to share with them?
As a mom, I remember when I was with my 2 boys at home, and the first 4 years, it felt forever. I was even telling my husband, one day that I was so frustrated and maybe crying, like, when are they going to grow up? I felt like, I was there forever and they were not growing up. I didn't see. I was with them every day. And then he told me they will. And enjoy them now while they're little, because there will be one day and it will be very soon. You will never imagine how soon that will be. And now my elder son is 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I can't believe that. And I go back and think, like, where did the time go? I really, I'm glad I spent these years with my children when they were little, and I've been there for them while they were growing up. And I've been spending time with it, quality time with them. And now I don't regret it. So as a parent, I think that will be something really hard to see your little ones feeling like they're not growing and getting, exhausted, tired, because it is. It is exhausting as a parent. But then one day you get up and here it is, a teenager or someone graduating from college. And you start thinking like, wait, where did all this time go? So invest your time, your quality time with your kids, because you're never going to know when you get up in the morning and you see back and you will see where did the time go.
We can't rewind time.
And go back.
Never.
No.
Never. So I love that, invest quality time.
Yes.
It's an investment.
Yes.
With the little ones.
Yes.
Well, Elsa, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making the time for this. We're super excited to share this with people out there. And for you listening or watching this, thank you for joining us. We're super glad you've made it through this conversation. And again, as always, let us know what do you want to hear from teachers, or if you're a listener and you're like, I want to hear from a 5th grade teacher, or I want to hear from another high school teacher. Let us know, what do you want to hear? What are some questions you have? What are some tips, or what are some things that you want to know from teachers? Because they have a certain insight that we parents don't have. They spend so much time with our kiddos in a classroom, and they're spending quality time with them. Thank you so much for joining us, for listening in, and we will see you again on the next episode.